When assessing the principles of accountability, I think the first port of call has to be the Nolan principles, which were established in 1995, the 7 principles of public life in a committee chaired by Lord Nolan. And the principles were designed to guide the behaviour of public office holders in whatever walk of life they happen to be, but particularly in politics. And the principles are, number 1, selflessness. People should be people who hold public office, who are appointed to public office, or who have been elected to, who have been given the responsibility of public office, act solely in the public interest. Integrity. Holders of public office should avoid placing themselves under any obligation to individuals or to an organisation that might try to influence their work. They should not act or take decisions to their own financial gain or other material benefit for themselves, their family, their friends. 3, objectivity. They should take decisions impartially, fairly, on merit, and using the best evidence that is possible without discrimination or bias. They should be mindful of accountability. And this is the issue really which needs to be discussed, that they are accountable to the public for their decisions and their actions. They must submit themselves to scrutiny to ensure this. And I'm not sure there is a time limit to this. This is why I think that former Prime Ministers should be in the House of Lords, where they can be held to account as and when events emerge that require their commentary. They should be open and transparent. Information should not be withheld from the public unless there are clear and lawful reasons for doing so. They should be honest, and they should be assumed to be honest and to be truthful. And they should be mindful of their job as leaders. They should promote leadership, support the principles of leadership by example. So all of this is about the ethical and the moral underpinning of our society. And this has been utterly in decline. There's been an erosion of trust mixed with an erosion of commitments to the 7 Nolan principles. And you can think Gamblegate just in the last week or so. Parliamentary candidates found from the beginning of the election to have broken the law by betting on the election. And it seems minor, but it feeds into the narrative that politicians are self-serving shits. And that doesn't do anything in an election time. And in an election time, you can't hide behind the rhetoric and the can-kicking ceremony of holding an investigation. You need to make a deliberate decision, and that's Rishi Sunak's failure. The Brexit lies and Partygate. In fact, the whole concept of Brexit, the misleading claims made during Brexit, the scandal of government officials breaching the COVID-19 lockdown rules, have severely damaged. But I think it's the Pincher stuff and all the stuff which followed, which really damaged public opinion. The efforts to change the law to avoid a member of the Conservative government being censured. This is really where the rot kicks in, where the Conservative system was prepared to use the law to change the outcome, not only in the case of an individual, but also in the case of Rwanda. And the Supreme Court is not supreme because people like Suella Braverman can pick at the wording and change the law. I don't think there's been a time in British politics since Henry VIII that the law has been changed to accommodate somebody's vanity. The SNP embezzlement scandal. The SNP embroiled in embezzlement charges. Natalie McGarry, convicted of misappropriating funds from pro-independence group, but also Campervan, the Welsh Labour leader, accused of taking £200,000 from a criminal donor. Again, further taints the political land. So it's not just one party which is under the carpet of disgrace, which is somehow being rolled out over the political stage. It's all parties, all the big parties anyway. It's about a decline of parliamentary standards, and the House of Commons has become a sort of rubber stamp for the executive ever since Tony Blair introduced the automatic guillotine, limiting the time that MPs have to debate laws, have to debate bills. That needs to go. And real debate needs to be returned to the place where debate is king in a monarchy. So this has led, Tony Blair's guillotine has led to MPs often voting on legislation without fully understanding it, driven by party loyalty rather than common sense and informed decision-making rather than the Nolan principles. The Hansard Society's 2010 report highlighted a growing disconnect between MPs and the public, with decisions perceived to be made by unaccountable bodies. Absolutely. And this disconnect has persisted and arguably worsened since Brexit, as MPs have become more detached from reality and the needs of the constituents, often citing security. But that can be solved. We have the example of COVID and the use of Zoom to ensure that there are sufficient MPs' surgeries going on all the time. We have the technology to make an MP's life more secure. I don't think this is security. I think this is avoiding scrutiny, in the same way that MPs like Andrea Leadsom simply want to talk over the constituent when you go to her surgery. Well, you won't anymore, she's resigned. But when you did, that was her method, to meet the constituents and then talk them down. That's not right either. But, you know, we've got failure of accountability, failure of oversight, privatised water companies dumping sewage into the rivers, into the sea. Therese Coffey, indifferent. The Post Office Horizon scandal. Ministers, including Ed Davey, now happy doing water sports in public, ignoring warnings about the flawed Horizon IT system that led to the wrongful prosecution of sub-postmasters. And he seems to have been able to duck responsibility. How is that possible? The COVID loan write-offs, the Treasury's decision to write off billions of fraudulent COVID loans rather than pursue them, reflects a failure to hold individuals and businesses to accountable. The business of Baroness Moan and PPE. Brexit's impact on trust. Brexit may, Boris said, get Brexit done. Well, it may be done, but so are we. We're done because the Brexit which was voted for is not the Brexit that was delivered. Lord Frost wrote an article yesterday saying that the Conservatives have failed to deliver their principles. They have failed to do their thing, but partly because of him. Partly because of his failure to read the small print. Partly because of his failure to bother reading the paperwork. But we know that's his problem, because he thought that he could stand as an MP after having been elevated to the peerage with a life peerage. There is no mechanism to allow that to happen. If he'd read the details, he would have known. What an unbelievable pillock who gave us the mess in Northern Ireland, who yielded the opportunity for the small boats by ignoring the possibility of setting up a Dublin 3 counterpart. So much can be laid at the feet of the limbs of Lord Frost, but he's not the only person responsible for the impact that Brexit has had on trust, the discontent that has emanated from Brexit quarters, those people who wanted Brexit, those people who didn't want Brexit. It's about a breakdown of trust, and the people who are making the decisions are hiding in ignorance in Whitehall. The electoral system's imbalances, the first past the post system no longer works. When the Liberal Democrats could potentially double their seats with fewer votes altogether than in previous elections, while Nigel Farage's cult gains more votes and less seats. His calls for proportional representation highlight the perceived unfairness of the system, and in that, he is absolutely right. And then there's the media influence and the social media influence that has ignited and inflamed, engorged political cynicism. The media's role in shaping public perception cannot be underestimated. A media environment that eulogizes presenters, disparages politicians, exacerbates cynicism and contempt and the destruction of the mechanics of the workings of leadership, public figures who speak only in sound bites because that's what the media generates, rather than substantive dialogue. This sets the framework for what happens in Westminster. And it leads to a perception that politicians are untrustworthy and that politicians are unsound, are slight, are insignificant. Politicians represent us. That's why we have an election. To rebuild trust and to restore accountability in British politics, we need to reinforce the ministerial code, tighten the rules governing ministerial conduct until they become routine. We need to regulate the revolving door. Rather like merrily we roll along. New friends pour through the revolving door. We need to properly manage the transition between public office and business roles to prevent conflict of interest. We can think of the person who came to blows over Farage's Coutts account and the easy access that she has had back into the top echelons of the business sphere. We can think also of the way that Paula Venables moved from a disgraced leader of the Post Office Limited straight into a top job in an NHS hospital trust, and then refused to budge when the Post Office scandal became really bad. And we need to reform the honours system. The honours system, like the House of Lords, provides a benchmark of propriety, and both have been squandered in the interests of political lobbies. We need to stop abuse, ensure that honours are awarded based on merit and service rather than political favouritism. We need to ensure that the House of Lords is staffed with people who I think should be divorced from the party political system. And I have no problem with the people who are in the House of Lords, unlike many people who comment on the House of Lords. I think the people who are in the House of Lords have every reason to stay there. But I don't think they should manifest their party loyalty. I think they should leave their party loyalty at the door. And that should now be one of the principles on which the House of Lords conducts its business. Party loyalty is abandoned. And instead, the loyalty is based on the principles of whether one favours or disputes a particular piece of legislation. So there'll be a lot of musical chairs in any sort of House of Lords that I would envisage, but I think that's the way forward. And that way we can also encourage many more people from business and from public life outside politics to enter the House of Lords and to contribute to the one place in the Chamber of Westminster that doesn't seem to have been, in the Palace of Westminster, which doesn't seem to have been distorted by social media and media, and that actually maintains a good standard of debate. If you really want to hear a good debate, switch on the Parliament channel, Parliament TV, and tune into the House of Lords. It's stirring, informed stuff for the most part. No, it's a bit slow, but good debate is slow, is reasoned, is thoughtful, and in addition, I think we need to get rid of this guillotine. It just needs to go. It's another thing that Tony Blair did that was appalling, and it's highly regrettable. Highly regrettable. The House of Commons and the House of Lords should be the location for informed and, if necessary, protracted political debate and vote-taking. The political debate is more important, I would maintain, than the vote-taking. The vote-taking should follow from that, but the political debate is the thing which should be recorded. That's what Hansard is for, and that's what these people have been elected to do. They've been elected to debate, not rubber stamp.